It seems like it's been quite a while since I've driven the Cobra because I really haven't been driving it that much, which kind of is the overall theme for this video of things that go wrong with these cars. And one of these things on the list is an issue that I had, which kind of prevented me from driving it until I could figure out exactly what the cause was. This list is just kind of things that have happened to me and kind of things in the community that come up quite often with the 03, 04 Cobras. Some of these are parts that break, some of these are issues that come up just because these cars can be problematic for no other reason than that's just how they are. The first thing that I'll start out with, number one, is an issue that I've had with the car since I brought it out this spring, and that is coolant charge temps. When I first drove it this year, it was having issues with bubbles in the coolant system. And that's only one issue. I'll get to the second one that has to do with that in just a second. When I put it up for the winter, there was no problems at all. It was fine all last year. I got it back from the shop from getting work done. They had to drain the coolant system, filled it back up. Everything was bled out of it fine. It was running fine all fall and into the early winter when I put it up. Took it out this spring, completely different story. It was having really high coolant charge temps, and what that was, I had a bubble in the coolant system. How it got there, I don't know. That eventually resolved itself. Bubble popped and the charge temps were fine. Over the past couple weeks, I started having the same issue again, but it was a lot worse. It wasn't a bubble that would just pop on its own. And I contacted Cobra Dan and told him what was going on. I was getting really, really high coolant charge temps, and I was asking him for advice on what I could do to help resolve that. And he suggested pulling the upper hose off the supercharger coolant tank and filling it from that hose to push air through the system, or to push coolant through the system to clear out any air that was in there. So I did that actually earlier today, and I took the car out for a drive, and the temperatures have been phenomenal. I ripped on it pretty good earlier. I was holding 15 pounds of boost for probably like 1/8 of a mile straight, got into boost quite often, and my intercooler temps for the coolant never got above 129. Almost hit 130, but not quite. And it cooled right back down again and settled down right around the low 120s, which is generally where I found these cars like to run in the weather that I'm in for the summertime. My first Cobra was the same thing. The coolant charge temps were like around the 120s just driving around. So that's one problem with these cars, is that there's all kinds of things that can go wrong with the intercooler charging system, whether it's bubbles in the system or it gets airlocked like mine did and you needed to push coolant reverse through the system and get that to clear the air out of there. Actually, a lot of bubbles came up when the reservoir started to fill back up again. So there's definitely air trapped in there. We drive the car a few minutes now. It's at 111, which is pretty normal for the temperature outside and what I generally see with this car. Number two, it's kind of a universal problem that everyone knows about. That is either looking to get one of these cars or have had one of these cars. And I had the same issue with my last one, and that's the alternator going out. I won't harp on this too much just because it's been talked about to death, but it's kind of something I needed to fill out the top 5. But the alternators can definitely be a problem in these. I had the stock one go out on my last one and put a better alternator in there, and it was fine after that. This one has an upgraded alternator already on it, so I haven't been having any voltage regulator issues or anything like that. It's been really good. It holds at about high 13s, low 14s whenever I click the gauge over and want to look at it, which generally I keep it on coolant and charge temps for the supercharger. So that's pretty much what I keep that gauge on for the Interceptor. But I click it over to the alternator every once in a while just to kind of see where it's at, and I've never seen it have any issues. So that's been a non-issue on this car so far. The third thing that can go wrong, or that I see happen quite often in forums or in the Facebook groups, is people have pulley alignment issues, and a lot of that is caused from an improperly aligned alternator. It can throw that belt off by just one groove on one of the pulleys, and it will completely screw up everything and shred a belt. And I had that happen on my last Cobra, where the alternator we were putting on needed to clearance the bracket, and it wasn't done enough. It was like probably like 1/8 of an inch off, but it was just enough to knock that pulley out of alignment. And I realized it was out after I shredded the belt, and I put a pulley laser alignment tool on it, and I could see that it was off by like 1 rib on the pulley, and that's all it took. And you know, it can look like everything's straight, it can be riding on the pulley straight, but in all reality it's not on there straight at all, and it can give you problems, and you'll end up shredding a belt. And I'm lucky that I've only shredded 1 belt, because they can get a little bit pricey on these cars. And if you do have belt alignment issues or belt shredding issues, it's probably your pulley alignment that's throwing it off. Usually the alternator is the most common culprit of this. While we're on the topic of pulleys, it's the actual idler pulleys themselves that can cause a lot of problems on these cars. Generally the OEM ones, if they've been on the car for way too long, then they tend to basically will explode. They'll split apart, they'll blow your belt apart, and generally this is something that a lot of people recommend changing before it becomes a problem. But if you're running your stock idler pulleys, the stock idler set on the car, and you're up there in the mileage a little bit, 50, 60, 70, 80,000 miles, it may be getting to the point where you need to change those if you haven't done it yet. And it's one of those things that you want to change it before it becomes a problem, because if you blow a pulley and shred a belt, then you're kind of stuck somewhere. You could hopefully be close to home and get the car home, but if not, you know, you're looking at getting it towed or finding another way to get it home. And the 5th common problem that people have with these cars, luckily I haven't actually had this problem myself, but it does come up quite often, and a lot of people do have these problems, and that is the intercooler pump itself. Sometimes that pump will just quit, and you won't know at all unless you're looking at your IA2 coolant charge temps. And that's why it's important to have an aftermarket gauge, so you can keep an eye on that, because there is not a factory gauge where you can keep an eye on that, which is, I don't know, what gauge do you give up that Ford gave you, or you could potentially have that instead. But so the next best solution to that is to have an aftermarket gauge that will read your coolant temps, because if your pumps go out and your coolant temps shoot up, you're not going to know unless you're looking at those numbers. And if you do have high numbers, there's usually one of the 2 problems. Either the first problem I mentioned, something wrong with a bubble in the system, or it's airlocked, or your intercooler pump has gone out. Now with these cars being over 20 years old now, there's all kinds of problems that can come up with these. These are just 5 things that I kind of threw together off the top of my head, or common things that come up most often for those of you out there that may be looking into getting one of these. These are common things to look at and common things to keep in mind while having ownership of one of these cars. And if you're not sure if you have a bubble in your system, or if it's airlocked, or if your intercooler pump has gone out, you can jump the intercooler pump. There's a bunch of videos online on how to do this. I'll throw in a clip at the end of this, show you guys how to do it if you're not sure on how to do it. But you don't even have to have the car running. You just need a piece of coat hanger or a wire or something like that, and you can jump the pump, and it will, if it runs, then you know your pump's working. If it doesn't kick on, then you know your pump's bad and you need to replace it. Okay, so for those who may not be aware, this is how you jump your intercooler pump. Over here by your air intake, there's this little black box. There's a cover here, I already popped it off. Cover comes off, and there's a relay right here. You need to pull this relay off. Comes off really hard, so you kind of have to support this and pull this at the same time to pop it off. And all you need is, like here, just have a paper clip, or you can use coat hanger. or anything like that. And basically what you want to do is touch the connector up here, the top one, and then this down here on the bottom, and that will jump the intercooler pump. Well, let me know down in the comments, what are some of the problems that you've had with your Cobra? Maybe something that I missed. There's quite a few things that can go wrong with these over time. So if you can think of anything else, add it down in the comments below and let me know what issues that you've had with yours, and maybe we can make a more longer compiled list later on down the road. If you did make it this far in the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. But above all else, thanks for watching.